Two balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swing and a drive, deep left field. It's his way back. Walk the ball. Chris Taylor.
What's up, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Matthew Moreno, who is nicely cleaned up. Haircut, the shave, 2-for-1 special today, Matt.
Yeah, I came. I'm looking like I'm reporting to Yankees camp, where you need to get rid of the facial hair and everything, get cleaned up. Yeah, I got a haircut, and then I felt like, okay, I think the beard needs to go at this point. It's kind of usually, if you guys, I know people watching will comment here and there about it. It's usually how it goes for me. If I get the haircut, I kind of combo it with shaving and say, let's just start over fresh.
Yeah, clearly, I have not followed suit. This is, it's a little colder up where I am, so we just keep this on for warmth. But we appreciate everybody who's joining us live on YouTube. I see a TGIF. It is Friday. It's late night. It's like happy hour action over here on Dodger Heads Live. So thanks for being a part of it. Those listening after the fact, maybe early bedtime, waking up Saturday morning, listening via podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google. We appreciate you as well. See some familiar faces in the chat. So tons to get to tonight. Should be a fun one. We're not quite to games yet, Matt, but there's sort of like the beauty of spring training is there's kind of nothing happening, but we're so desperate for something that it feels like significant things are happening.
Yeah, like there's at least one or two noteworthy updates every day, even though it's kind of the same thing of, pitchers are now throwing bullpen sessions and maybe some live BP, and hitters are taking more batting practice. But like we're going to get into it with Ohtani, Yamamoto, Glasnow, like there's beauty in the details with everything. And I think that's what is exciting about spring training.
Yeah, look, we were getting excited about Ohtani standing in a batter's box, just watching somebody pitch baseballs towards him. That was like the big storyline today. And then there was a scheduling error, and Dodgers Twitter just about lost its mind about why Ohtani didn't stand in against Alex Vesia. And so we're going to get to all of that, but lots of stuff to get to. Here's the plan for tonight. We're kind of framing this as 6 questions this spring. What are the 6 questions that I'm asking, the things I am most curious about? I'm going to run them past Matt, get his thoughts, his perspectives, mix in kind of what we're hearing from folks who are on the ground in spring training, as well as just the news that has started to come out. But I think in order, these are the 6 biggest questions that we hope to find answers over the next, I guess it's kind of crazy. Here we are, February 16th. We're just over a month away from the Dodgers playing a baseball game that counts in the regular season. And so let's start with the biggest one. We've already kind of referenced this, Matt. Will Shohei Ohtani actually be ready for opening day? The batting practice stuff is becoming comical to me. It's like every time this guy picks up a baseball bat, everybody knows about it. He hits 5 home runs on his first 5 swings, according to Fabian Ardaya. And then he goes into a massive slump, Matt. He goes 8 for his next 21, depending on who you count here. But Ohtani's taking batting practice. There's some great quotes. I mean, Dave Roberts says he's further along than any of us other than he would have expected. The language has been that he is on track. Ohtani says he is very confident. Matt, are you very confident that on March 20th, when the Dodgers start the regular season, that Shohei Ohtani will be ready?
I think so. And I know you alluded to kind of the scheduling error that took place. Dave Roberts told reporters in the morning that Ohtani was going to, at minimum, like you said, stand in the batter's box against Alex Vesia. And I think there was also some right-handed pitcher that was going to then throw to Ohtani. Dave Roberts did say he may take some swings. I'm not sure. Vesia pitched. He didn't end up. Ohtani never came out. The reporter said, once Vesia finished, then Ohtani came out from the Dodgers kind of indoor hitting cage and ended up taking kind of just regular BP off a I think it was Dino Ebo who pitched him today. It's been Clayton McCullough and Dino Ebo, I think, sort of alternating or some combination of the two. And I think, yes, to get back on track with your question specifically, I am confident. I think, I don't know if Ohtani would have said he's confident as well, kind of, at Dodger Fest. And then upon reporting to spring training, I think he would have been honest and just said maybe something like, I'm hopeful or I'm not sure yet. But everything he's been saying, look at everything he's been doing. He didn't take the live BP today, but that's expected to now come in the next handful of days. So, yeah, I think just every kind of barometer he keeps sort of checking off is encouraging and points to, we still have a month, like you said, just a little over a month until the games really count. And I think he'll end up being in the lineup.
It's a balance of those two things, right? It's encouraging that he's on track. It's encouraging that he's starting to do things. And yet when you say the words on track, the implication is clear. There are multiple things still that need to happen in the next 34 days, however many days we've got left before games. We'll see if those actually happen. Keep in mind that the Dodgers will be going over to Korea a number of days before the season starts. They'll play a couple exhibition games, that kind of thing. Dave Roberts did say what this all means as far as when Ohtani's going to play in a Cactus League game. He doesn't know the answer, so to be determined there. You mentioned Dino Ebel. First of all, I didn't realize, I had forgotten that Dino Ebel was with the Angels. His last year, Ohtani was, I believe, Ohtani's first year, but the only reason I knew Ebel pitched batting practice today was because of the quotes that he had afterwards. This is what he said. He's just so strong. I threw away, homer. I threw middle, homer. I throw middle in, homer. He had purpose with every swing he took. Every pitch had a game-like speed. He was joking about the EVs, what the exit velocities must have been on that. And I mean, look, I get why people are fired up about the batting practice, because it's kind of outrageous what this guy's doing, especially when you consider this is like the first time he's taken live swings in months, and Ohtani puts on a show every single time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we do have some video up on our YouTube channel of Ohtani's batting practice session today, so definitely check that out. And I think, for me at least, it looks like his swing were even closer to kind of full effort. I know he wasn't joking, but he was seriously saying I plan to take it easy. His first time doing BP on the field, and he ended up feeling better than he thought. But comparing kind of just the movement and stuff, and obviously it's analyzing it from a video. Like I'm not a trainer, I'm not a hitting coach, but to my untrained eye, if you will, it looked like his swings on Friday were definitely closer to kind of the full effort that you would see, that you would expect before he does start facing some pitching. And again, like, we're talking about a month from now. Like, I'm sure he probably will get into some Cactus League games. If he doesn't, it's not the end of the world. Dave Roberts did say that another option for the Dodgers is getting Ohtani into some of the B games on the backfields, because he can control the environment a little bit more. He could lead off every inning if that's what the Dodgers want to have him do. If they could roll innings over, like, there's just a bunch of crazy, there's no rules back there, basically.
Yeah.
So in terms of Cactus League, like, I would be a little bit more cautious or less confident with that. But
yeah,
I mean, like it's encouraging and it's exciting. I think, at least for me so far, like, I knew Ohtani was obviously a superstar, like everything he was doing with the Angels, but it was with the Angels, right? Like, we're not following them day to day, and now having to follow him day to day, it's remarkable. Just kind of, one, the attention he gets, like you said, for no matter what he does, and two, just the kind of talent he really is.
Yeah, we've joked about how this is going to impact other guys and all the extra media. I bet there's a lot of guys that might be loving it, because everybody just goes to where Ohtani is. And if anybody wants to do something silently and in quiet, like, nobody's watching the guy taking batting practice on the field next to him, or the bullpen session that is happening while Ohtani is pitching. The other big news today is related to question number 2, and let's talk about the new guys. What's the buzz around Tyler Glasnow and Yoshinobu Yamamoto? This is one that I'm asking. I'm curious to see these guys. They're obviously new. They come with different sort of things to watch. Glasnow is a big health question. Yamamoto obviously new to the United States. Glasnow pitched today, and he pitched well by all accounts. Juan Toribio reported that Glasnow was throwing 98, 99 mile an hour. Dave Roberts has said he's throwing 97 in bullpens. He punches out Mookie Betts with a curveball, which he downplayed after and said, hey, we're way ahead of the hitters. That doesn't really count. I love this quote from Miguel Rojas when Freddie Freeman and Jason Hayward, who also faced Glasnow, came back. He said, quote, they said that wasn't a fun at bat. I've been facing this guy the last 6 or 7 years. You either get lucky hitting a fastball early in the count, or you have to battle with his other stuff, and his stuff is really good. So anytime Freddie Freeman and Jason Hayward, guys who have been around and seen everybody, come back and say, that wasn't that fun to face Tyler Glasnow, pretty positive reports on Tyler Glasnow today.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that Blake's not on this show tonight, because he would be taking an early victory lap, because I know he's been the high man on Glasnow since the trade and then subsequent contract extension.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is what again, it is very early, so that's fair. But this is what the Dodgers envisioned when they traded for him and signed him to that extension. Glasnow said during his first sort of, I don't want to call it a press conference because it was on Zoom, and I think he might have been in his car, if I'm remembering correctly. But
that sounds familiar.
His first sort of media session with us after the trade, He said he's healthy. He said he'd moved past some of the elbow trouble that had been plaguing him over recent years. That's a sentiment that Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes have both echoed. Dave Roberts has also reiterated it. He said it again today. And so, seeing Glasnow, his velocity get up that high, some of these experienced hitters, like you said, Freddie Freeman, I think knows a thing or two about collecting some hits at the major league level. Like, so when they're saying stuff like that about Glasnow, it's hard not to, get optimistic and hopeful over what he can potentially be at the top of the rotation with Yamamoto.
Here's one thing. Can we get rid of, they refer to him as Glass. Can we get rid of that for a guy who, as Jack Harris pointed out, has never made 14 consecutive starts in a season? I get his name is Glasnow, but like, surely we have to come up with something better than Glass, right?
Yeah, I'm surprised they don't just call him straight Tyler. We've joked about like the baseball thing to do is to add like a Y to the end of everybody's last name, right? So Barnesy, Luxy. Yeah. You can't do that for Glasnow. Like that just doesn't rhyme. Glassy is also a little weird. So I'm shocked that they don't just go straight Tyler
or Ty. Ty feels like a nice little baseball nickname. I mean, I know that could work. Dramatic, but anyways, there were some interesting quotes. I'll say this because the question with Glasnow specifically this spring is his health. And when asked what his goal was this year, he said, I want to stay healthy and make all my starts, which is, that's an admirable goal. Normally you want a pitcher to have maybe higher his eyes set higher than making all of his starts. But Andrew Friedman has said, quote, we feel like he's going to hold up. He's going to be a big part of what we do. Mark Pryor, I think it's safe to say if we didn't feel optimistic about his health that we wouldn't have traded for him. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. The Dodgers are optimistic about Glasnow, but look, every time he takes the mound in spring training is going to be a big deal. And I'm just curious. Let's see kind of how the next few weeks progress. On the flip side, Yamamoto is going to take the role of Glasnow this weekend. He's set to face live hitters. It sounds like there's obviously Gavin Lux was quoted earlier in the spring, standing in, kind of just watching, saying stuff is nasty. So I'm sure, Matt, we will get some great quotes following Yamamoto's first time pitching to live hitters.
Yeah, definitely some quotes, hopefully some video. The big thing with Yamamoto is he's been open about needing to adjust to kind of the new baseball and the rosin and stuff like that. And he's not concerned with it by any means, but this is going to be kind of his first opportunity to kind of deal with those new elements, if you will, while facing hitters at the same time. Because in a bullpen session, theoretically, if you need to take a little extra time between pitches just to kind of, get a feel for the baseball, you can.
Yeah.
With these live BPs, it's a little bit different because you do have a hitter kind of there waiting. You have a catcher, putting down signs, and you're getting, you're kind of cycling through your repertoire and stuff like that. So it'll be good. I don't know. I mean, I think it'll have buzz in its own right. I forget. Does Yamamoto, is his velocity in the high 90s as well? Does he crank it up the way Glasnow did?
I think it's mid to upper 90s, maybe. Okay. 95, 96, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
So maybe we're not getting the, oh my goodness, he's touching, 98 type thing. But if he's, locating, I know, like you said, Gavin Lux said some of his breaking ball pitches were, nasty or filthy, something to that effect. So yeah, it'll certainly be interesting to see Yamamoto get his crack at hitters. And what I always like seeing too is which batters they end up facing. Like it's fun when it's, elite talent against elite talent. And when you're the Dodgers and especially this roster, like there's an abundance of options. Yeah. If they send up against a bunch of, minor leaguers who maybe haven't made their debut yet, it takes a little bit of the excitement away.
Yeah. Just doing some research, by the way, 95, 96 is right around where he was in the World Baseball Classic and last year. So it's above average in Major League Baseball standards, but yeah, it's not going to be holy crap. Glasnow's touching 98, 99 in his first appearance. So that'll be a fun one to watch there. Question number 3, and this is who gets crowded out of the bullpen? Now, this might seem like a fairly benign question, but Dave Roberts made a quote today that struck me as rather interesting, caught me off guard. He said that the Dodgers' goal is to have Blake Trinan on the active roster to start the year, no surprise. JP Feyereisen on the roster to start the year, no surprise. The third name he added to that list was Daniel Hudson, Matt, a non-roster invitee. We know what the hype is on Hudson. I think it's important to point out Hudson is not coming back from an arm injury. He's coming back from a leg injury. So there's, I would imagine, a little bit more optimism about his ability to throw a baseball, knowing that he's not coming back from elbow or arm surgery at his age. And yet I didn't have him in ink as a guy that was going to be on the opening day roster as far as from a bullpen perspective, and yet Roberts does. So let me run through some names. So if Treinen, Fireisen, and Hudson are all in the group, I think Ryan Brazier, Joe Kelly, Evan Phillips, Brusdar Graterol are locks. There's 7. You only get 8. And the 8th spot, we're all imagining, because the Dodgers have 7 straight games to begin the year, that 8th bullpen spot is probably going to be a bulk guy, whether it's Ryan Yarbrough or Michael Grove. That would leave Alex Vesia on the outside looking in, which, by the way, Matt, if Grove is the 8th guy, they would have 8 right-handed pitchers in the bullpen. And we don't need to get into how important is it to have a lefty, because I think we've kind of handled that a little bit on this show. But the fact that Hudson is, in Robert's estimation, expected to be on the opening day roster caught me a little bit by surprise.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll take it a step further. It completely shocked me just because, one, he's back on a minor league contract. So there's no like they do have opt-outs, especially these veteran guys, like will have opt-out dates, but it's usually like a month to maybe 6 weeks into the season before that sort of comes up.
Yeah.
So that being said, I don't even think that would have applied to Hudson right now. Seeing some of his comments, Kerry Osborne of Dodger Insider spoke to Daniel Hudson before Dave Roberts kind of laid out this bullpen picture for opening day. And Hudson was open about, one, he didn't want his career to end the way it did last season with the knee injury. 2, he wanted to be back with the Dodgers specifically because of how they've taken care of him during his rehab process and stuff like that. And so it wouldn't strike me as a problem if they said, hey, you're on a minor league deal. We need to buy some time with the guys we have up right now who maybe don't have options, who are already on the 40-man, stuff like that. Go down to OKC for a month, 6 weeks, maybe even 2 months. And then, we'll reevaluate and see. Like, it's the bullpen, as I know Blake is in the chat from Disneyland, and he likes to remind everybody how volatile relief pitchers are. So it completely surprised me that that's what he said about Hudson. And I don't know. I don't see all three of these. I don't see all three of the relief pitchers you named, Hudson, Treinen, and Fireisen, each being on the opening day roster.
It's strictly from a health perspective, you're saying, right? Like the odds that all 3 of these guys get through the next 30 days healthy. Is that kind of your question?
I think that's probably safe to assume that that's not going to be the case, or that, each of them won't make it to opening day in terms of being ready without something popping up. But I also, part of me wonders if he mentioned, I know Fireisen is somebody who I picked, I think, as kind of a surprise contributor this season type thing. Like he's certainly on the radar for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But he also hasn't he didn't pitch at all. I mean, like Treinen, but Fireisen has options remaining.
Yeah.
So I find it hard to believe that they wouldn't necessarily option him to OKC to start the season. And maybe that's just not something Dave's going to come out and say right now, because there's a month before the season begins and anything could happen. You want guys to kind of stay prepared. So I think either because of, quote unquote injury, although, hey, you have to be careful because what's his name? Billy Epler just got in trouble for fabricating injury stuff. So maybe we need to give the
Dodgers would never do that. They would never do that.
Give them a little more benefit of the doubt when they say, somebody's got an achy back. But I think either because of that or just a roster crunch, if Daniel Hudson and Blake Treinen really are ready for opening day, I could see Fireisen starting the season at OKC.
And I think the point you make about options, Alex Vesia has options. Michael Grove has options. I believe Ryan Yarbrough might even have options. I'll double check on that. So those are all guys that Yarbrough doesn't. So, I mean, if you were betting, I guess Yarbrough would be the betting favorite to be that final spot. Vesia, Grove would be the guys who start down. It's worth pointing out the guys that the Dodgers traded away out of the bullpen were all guys that didn't have options left. And so they've kind of given themselves flexibility. And you could even make the case, have kind of already placed some bets on Daniel Hudson being in the bullpen and being a contributor, knowing that once he's on the major league roster, it's either the injured list or the major league roster and nothing in between for him. And so, again, you could kind of, if Dave Roberts is telling the truth, which up to you if you believe he is, this is the type of thing he doesn't usually lie about. Injuries, you can have some questions, but Treinen, Fireisen, Hudson, Brazier, Kelly, Phillips, Graterol, and then again, I think Ryan Yarbrough, to appease the wait, we need a lefty guy, but also because they need a bulk guy and he doesn't have any options, feels like that would be the 8 I would bet on if I'm taking Dave at his word, right? Yeah. I mean, but you're kind of pushing back at maybe Dave doesn't actually mean exactly what he's saying.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you take him for what he's saying, then yes. I don't know. I guess the safest bet, honestly, like I said, is just that things unfortunately happen, and the odds of those three right-handers making it through spring training and being fully healthy and sharp and ready to go for the season, like those odds just aren't very high.
Yeah, I'm here. I hear you. I hear you. All right. Question number 4. Something we've talked about lately a little bit, but can Gavin Lux inspire some confidence? If there is a guy, what's interesting, Matt, is I can't tell if Gavin Lux is flying under the radar because there is so much else going on, or if he's in the spotlight because he feels like the only guy on the roster in the starting lineup, especially, that people have questions, concerns, doubts about. So, do you think, Matt, by the time we get to the end of spring training, will you feel any degree of confidence in Gavin Lux as a guy who's going to be the everyday shortstop for the Dodgers all season?
I don't know if that'll be enough. I mean, I think you could gain a little bit of confidence with what you see in spring training. That being said, unfortunately for Lux, I do feel like he's in the position where if he struggles at all or if he's slow out of the gate at all, he's going to get criticized more than what would be deserved and more than any other player.
Yeah.
And that was going to be the case last season with him moving back to shortstop. And it wasn't necessarily any fault of his own. It's just, the Dodgers, as much as Lux, he has the prospect pedigree. He hasn't really gotten the full opportunity yet to be the shortstop that he was drafted as. But the Dodgers had an all-star in Corey Seager at the position. They had an all-star in Trey Turner at the position. And so now you're going to Gavin Lux, who hasn't fully cemented himself at the major league level yet. So no matter, had he been healthy last year, he was going to face, I think, the criticism and the microscope that he's now going to be under this season.
Yeah, I think microscope's a good word. That feels like what he's getting. And look, the results so far, I mean, these are workouts, have been positive. He hit a home run off of Daniel Hudson, I believe, in spring training. So not a good look for Daniel Hudson, but a good look for Gavin Lux. And hey, if the Dodgers are confident in Daniel Hudson, maybe we shove feel better about the Gavin Lux home run. But he shows up in a huge knee brace, gets fully cleared. He's down to a sort of a compression sleeve. I've said, I still believe in Gavin Lux. I'm not projecting him to be an all-star necessarily, but he was a 3-win player the last time we saw him. That was at second base. If he can even play average to below average defense at shortstop, that number would probably go up just based on positional value alone. That was also a year in which he had no power. He seems to have put on a whole heck of a lot of weight and muscle. So if I think he was like a 114 weighted runs created plus guy, 14% better than average offensively with no power. So add in a little bit of power there, and we could be talking about a guy who's closer to an 800 OPS at shortstop, which again, can his defense be fine? I think is a far bigger question than his offense, but I'm still a believer that Gavin Lux can be a solid contributor on a team like the Dodgers. And I mean, he's going to bat ninth, probably. They're going to put speed at the bottom. The expectations aren't going to be crazy high. And yet, if you can put a guy down there who can hit 260, 270, I know you like the batting average there, and get on base in front of Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and Shohei Ohtani, I mean, he could end up with some pretty sizable numbers just based on who's batting behind him and who might be knocking him in.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think I like him batting ninth in the lineup. I think that there's value there to kind of having, another sort of pseudo leadoff hitter potentially turning the lineup over.
Yeah.
But what I worry about is, he went a full year without seeing major league pitching. And, yes, he'll see some of it in spring training, but it's spring training, and 2, it's condensed for the Dodgers' sake because they're opening the season in South Korea. So, I don't know, how much time then is there going to be that he needs to sort of adjust and get acclimated to seeing that again. And it's going to carry over into the regular season, and it's perfectly fine. But then I think it becomes also a mental thing where if is he going to put, he wants to, he's can't wait to get back on the field. He's been open about that, and that's natural. That's human nature. Yeah. But if he starts to struggle a little bit, is he going to then put pressure on himself, and then it becomes a mental thing?
Yeah.
And is he able to, kind of come out of that? How long does that maybe last? That's my concern with him.
Yeah, I think he's the type of guy who benefits from having Ohtani around and just being the guy who kind of sucks all of the attention in the room, because I think it's just going to let somebody like Gavin Lux breathe a little bit. I don't think he's going to have to overanalyze every 0 for 3 that he has in the first week or 2 of the season, because the attention is going to be on what Ohtani did and what Yamamoto did and what Glasnow did and all of these other things. And yes, if we're a month into the season and Lux is hitting $170 with no power and can't throw the ball to first base, that's not going to save him forever, but I think it's going to buy him enough time to hopefully develop and sort of get a little momentum going. Because again, they don't need him to be an all-star. They need him to hit 250 and play defense that's below average to average with a little bit of pop. And if he does that, I think nobody's going to be criticizing him necessarily. Question number 5. Speaking of an area of the roster that may have a little bit of lack of clarity, the outfield. We know the names that are involved. There's no clarity about who the outfielders are going to be on the roster. Teoscar Hernandez comes over on a big 1-year deal. James Outman was in the Rookie of the Year running a year ago. Jason Hayward is in. Chris Taylor is in the mix. Manuel Margot is in the mix. Hernandez, the number they signed him to tells you how much confidence they have in him. So I'm going to put him in his own bucket. The rest of these guys, Matt, James Outman, incredible start to the season. I think the narrative around him is that the book comes out on him. He struggles. You've got Jason Hayward, really solid numbers, box score numbers that Matt Moreno likes, really bad numbers on the StatCast page that Blake William likes. Manuel Margot, home and road splits, massive difference. He comes over in a trade. I've joked, I don't know if the Dodgers even wanted him, but he's here. And then Chris Taylor, who I was thrilled when they signed to a big contract that I thought was a bargain. He hasn't been that great the last 2 seasons. So here's my question. Outman, Hayward, Taylor, Margot. Which of those 4 guys are you most confident in, do you think, when the Dodgers start the regular season?
It's a great question. One, I'll go with Outman.
Okay.
It's close between him and Hayward.
Yeah.
I think Hayward, in his role, the platoon role, did enough to kind of inspire confidence to take from the Gavin Lux question.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers aren't going to start Hayward every day. They're going to keep him in the platoon role. So he should, hopefully continue to succeed. But also, he was coming off multiple down years. And so, was last season a little bit of a flash in the pan. And you said, there are some of the StatCast numbers that aren't in his favor. I still look at stuff that I don't need expected batting average. His batting average is what it was. It was good enough, right? But I think back to my first choice, I think it's Outman. We saw him struggle a little bit last season and adjust to, like you said, pitchers kind of having more film, more video of him and learning how to better attack him. And then I thought that he adjusted to them as well. Now, he had a subpar ending to the year in the NLDS, kind of across the board. In fairness, the team also fell flat on their face. Yeah. So there's that. But I think he showed enough for me. He can endure some struggles, bounce back, be okay to, now going into his second season. I think he'll be at least maybe not the crazy game against the Cubs where he had was it a grand slam or something?
Yeah.
It was when he had big performances like that, but maybe we might get more kind of steady performance from Outman throughout the year.
My answer is Outman as well, Matt. And I think there's a number that will surprise a lot of people. I intentionally said the narrative around James Outman is that the book came out and he struggled. His weighted runs created plus was actually dramatically better in the second half of last season than it was the first. He was a 102 hitter before 102 weighted runs created plus 100 is league average. In the first half, it was 137 in the second half. So he was great to begin the year, awful in May and June, which is where this all comes from. Bounces back in July and August, and then kind of struggled down the stretch. Keep in mind, first time he's played 162 games. So sort of the wear and tear catching up with you at the end, I think could be potentially explainable. But I'm with you on Outman. I'm also with you on Hayward. His numbers, he was a 120 weighted runs created plus guy in both the first half and the second half of the season. I know all the StatCast stuff isn't great. 20th percentile exit velocity, below 50th percentile in every offensive category, except for whiff rate, strikeout rate, and walk rate. So doesn't strike out a lot, draws some walks, but batted ball profile, not necessarily encouraging. You could make the case not sustainable. We'll see. Jason Hayward has a pedigree as a guy who used to be good, then wasn't good, then all of a sudden popped with the Dodgers and was good again. You mentioned the platoon. This is hilarious to me. He took 334 at-bats last year. 308 were against right-handed pitchers. This guy literally did not get to hit against lefties. Some notes on the other guys. Manuel Margot, expected batting average and strikeout rate are kind of his calling card. If you look at his StatCast numbers, those are the numbers that tend to be really good for him. So batting average guy, Matt, he might be your new guy. Everything else well below average. But he's a career 109 weighted runs created plus guy against lefties. Down last year, it was 84 last year, but for his career, good. So the Margot Hayward platoon, I think, is what everybody's expecting to see. And I think you could find some success there. Again, home road splits. He hit 84 points higher on the road than he did at home. So we're betting on that being real. Last one, Chris Taylor. Where are you at on Chris Taylor? 104 weighted runs created plus last year. He actually was technically above average offensively. Not really a splits guy, slightly better against lefties, but is above average against both lefties and righties. And yet the last 2 years I mentioned, it seems like he's a different guy. Could it be injury? Could it be wear and tear? And he's healthy now. You're kind of starting to hear those breadcrumbs trickle out in spring training. But where are you at on Chris Taylor?
I think, yeah, it seems like, I think it was Bill Plunkett who maybe talked to him about Chris Taylor, about his knee trouble that he had. I remember Chris Taylor.
That's right.
He came out of a game last season because of it. And like, he was open about it kind of being a lingering issue, downplayed a little bit at the time. Now I think he's willing to sort of admit that, it probably had a bigger impact than he sort of let on. He's not necessarily using it as an excuse, but hopefully that is behind him. Maybe that is partly to blame. I think honestly, like, he's just a streaky player, and he's going to have the highest of highs, and he's going to have the lowest of lows sometimes. And that's just sort of who he is. I think he brings tremendous value with his versatility. I mean, they could play him pretty much at any position on the field, which the Dodgers obviously love. And with, some of the different platoons that they're going to have this season. And, like we talked about Gavin Lux, like if there are defensive concerns, like he's an option there along with Miguel Rojas. Taylor, during one of the workouts already this spring, was taking grounders at second base as well. So maybe he's a backup to Mookie.
Okay.
So there's value there. And I think just at the plate, you take the good with the bad.
Yeah, I think Taylor's going to be the backup at second base. I think he's going to be the backup at third base. And I think you could even see him sort of mix in to some outfield positions. But if you think about who else on the roster can play second base and third base, they're not going to want to move Gavin Lux around. They're going to want him to just get reps at shortstop or be out. And Rojas could probably technically play those spots, but I don't think they're necessarily going to move him around there. So it'll be interesting to see. Taylor, my thing with Taylor is, his problem is when it's going bad, it looks awful because there's so much swing and miss. And when he's swinging and missing, it feels like he's not even close. And so sometimes the eye test can fool you on a guy like Chris Taylor, because the eye test can tell you it's way worse than it actually is. I was surprised to see he was an above average offensive player last year, but statistically he was. It was just, to your point, the lows were so low and they looked so bad that oftentimes that can maybe color and overpower our perception of reality. Last question here, the sixth one, the least important of the six, but around spring training is kind of my favorite one to ask, is who has next? There's a bunch of young guys, Matt, that are in camp. We've got Miguel Vargas, who's around trying out left field. We've got pitchers like Gavin Stone, Landon Knack, Kyle Hurt, River Ryan. You've got Hunter Fiducia potentially trying to work his way into the catching mix. Dalton Rushing, Trey Sweeney, the new guy coming over, Andy Pajes, who missed. So I'm curious for you. I mean, the storyline here is these guys are going to be needed at some point. Like Miguel Vargas is probably the 27th man on a 26-man roster. He's going to be up at some point. We just talked about the outfield concern. If he can play left field competently, that could be a thing. The pitchers, we know these guys are going to get used at some point. We know that James Outman wasn't on the major league radar, and then all of a sudden he was the starting center fielder. So when you think about all the young guys are in camp, I'm curious, when you're watching a spring training game, are there a name or two in here that you're sort of most excited to see actually in a real game environment?
I think probably Dalton Rushing and River Ryan. Ryan, I think, closer to the majors than Rushing is, but I think this is sort of the first time for Rushing, and so that'll be interesting to see. And hopefully he gets opportunities kind of late in games once the Dodgers have gotten the start, especially early on, right? These guys take like 2 at bats and then they're out of there. So yeah, I think those two. I mean, do I need to pick just one, or are you gonna let me slide?
No, that's fine.
Okay, yeah, I'll stick with those two.
Yeah, I'm with. I mean, those are the most hyped guys. It was interesting. Fangraphs just came out with their top 100 list, and they have River Ryan as the number 1 prospect in the Dodgers system, which is pretty remarkable. And I joked on Twitter about just the depth of the Dodgers system. I think they ended up with 10 different players in a top 100 list from a major publication. Obviously, not all 10 on any of those lists, but it just goes to show you the depth of the Dodgers prospects and a wide-ranging opinion on a guy like River Ryan and some of these other guys. So I think those are good choices. I think the obvious choice is Miguel Vargas in left field. Can he actually play left field? I'm curious to see that. But Gavin Stone's the name to me. And I've kind of mentioned it here. And I texted you because when we had Fabian Ardaya on our show, which if you missed that was a great interview just a few days ago. But he mentioned something just in passing about Gavin Stone. He's like, well, yeah, he had an injury last year and it kind of messed with his mechanics. And I'm texting you guys. I'm like, did I miss something? I don't remember ever hearing that Gavin Stone, who struggled mightily, was a top prospect, came up and struggled, had dealt with something. I think it sounded like spring training early in the year. Ardaya was saying kind of threw off his mechanics. And to some degree, there's belief that maybe that was the reason, the root of all of his issues. So Gavin Stone, to me, as the guy who was ahead of Bobby Miller on the guys who get their call up last year. He was ahead of Emmett Sheehan, that kind of thing. I'm curious to see do we see a bounce back from Gavin Stone even in the spring? Because if we do, that could be a huge boost. This was a guy who was a top 50 prospect 12 months ago, was believed to be the most major league ready. If he can rebound, I think that could be huge for the depth of the Dodgers starting pitching.
Yeah, that would be significant just because, as we've talked about it, as much as the Dodgers on paper have a ton of depth in their starting pitching staff, things happen, unfortunately. Yeah. And so, the young guys, it's good that they got the experience last year. Emmett Sheehan was up earlier than anticipated. Same thing for Bobby Miller, same thing for Gavin Stone. And so now if the Dodgers find themselves in a similar position this time around, like those guys will be much better equipped to handle it. And yeah, if Stone did have some sort of foot issue that kind of threw him off that he wasn't able to fully recover from, then, he took his lumps like every young pitcher will, but he also had moments where he flashed and it was like, oh, like that's why he was, the most ready pitching prospect the Dodgers had in their organization last year. And so, yeah, if he can build on his experience last year, be, healthier, get the mechanics straightened out, then he could certainly be an intriguing option for them this year, whether it's making spot starts or, down the line out of the bullpen, maybe.
Yeah, and there was another article by Kerry Osborne, who we've mentioned, Dodgers Insider, a couple of times, but he also talked about in that article about how Stone kind of tweaked his repertoire a little bit and added something new. He added a cutter and a two-seam fastball. Opponents were 4 for 21 against the two-seamer in August and September. And as a result of that, the changeup actually got better. So the two-seamer was effective and made his changeup more effective. So these are the types of things to keep an eye on. Fiducia, I joke about. I mean, 0.00% chance, Matt, that he is there anything he could do this spring to take Austin Barnes' spot on the roster? Short of a baseball bat to Austin Barnes' kneecaps.
I think if he hits not in spring. I think if he has a strong showing in spring training, it'll start those conversations. If that performance carries into the regular season, and if Barnes struggles to start the year, because what Dave Roberts, it sort of flew under the radar, but at the trade right after the trade deadline last season, like he was asked if the Dodgers thought about upgrading at the catcher position, and he basically said yes, that they did. And so that obviously would have meant, Will Smith isn't going anywhere. It would have meant Austin Barnes was going to be the odd man out, either in a trade or a DFA situation or whatever the case may be. So it surprised me at the time that Dave, one, revealed that, and two, that the team had those conversations, because we sort of joke about it, but it is factual. Like Austin Barnes and Clayton Kershaw have a very strong friendship, and Kershaw is back. So Barnes is safe for now, but if things, kind of mirror last season, then I think the Dodgers will sort of have that discussion. At this point, Kershaw's not around all year long, so he would have to sort of accept it a little bit more so than maybe last time.
Okay, let me ask you this. Hunter Fiducia, more likely to appear as a Dodger this season or to be traded?
Appear as a Dodger. I don't think they'll trade him yet. If anybody gets traded, I think it'll be Vargas, but that should have happened already.
Yeah. Come on. No, we need Miggy V. We need outfield depth, Matt.
I get yes, he's I hope he can take to left field, but for me, that's a move for next season. Like maybe he gets some spot innings there this year if there's an injury or something. But Teoscar Hernandez is only signed to a 1-year contract. So, if Miguel Vargas can handle left field, then I guess there's your job next year.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, let's get to a couple other stories worth talking about. One specific to the Dodgers, the other kind of a Major League Baseball story. The Dodgers have signed a relief pitcher, Matt, Justin Wilson, to a minor league contract, I believe. So he's not on the 40-man roster, but Wilson's an interesting story. FIP, if you're familiar with that stat, which is kind of a predictive ERA nerd stat, as Matt would say, is below 3.5 for his career, which is very good. He's 36 years old. He's a lefty. So if you're a big left-handed relief pitcher fan, Justin Wilson, is a lefty, although he has been better against righties than he has against lefties. So he doesn't fit the lefty mold. But the story that's bizarre about this guy is he has Tommy John surgery in 2022, rehabs, comes all the way back last season, is warming up in the bullpen, gets called into a game and gets hurt, strains his lat in that game, ends up missing the entirety of the season. He comes back now he's a Dodger. He's a minor leaguer. This is the quintessential classic Dodgers reclamation project, Matt. Is there anything here? Like, is this a guy you think we're going to hear about, or is this a name we're all going to forget and he's going to retire because he's already 36 years old?
He will pitch for the Dodgers, and I'll throw a quick number at you. Let's do a over under 9.5 appearances for the Dodgers this year.
Wow. Man, I'm going under. I just think there's I'm tempted to say over because the pedigree is pretty good. 36 is like in relief pitcher terms is not like you're not dead at this point. I just think that like there's Jesse Hahn is a guy who's gotten a little buzz kind of on that list. I've joked about liking Dinelson Lamet and thinking if the Dodgers can tap. So I just wonder, like, he's the new guy, but I wonder even in the sort of power rankings of guys, there was Fabian Ardaya when he was on was talking about the side armor who throws like 95 miles an hour. I'm blanking on his name, who's sort of in this group. So was it Brash? Maybe that name just came to me.
I forgot.
I'll look it up, but I don't know. I'm going under just because I feel like there's a lot of other guys. So I'll say under, but you're taking the over. I imagine.
Yeah, I'll take the over on it just because weird things happen in the bullpen. And this is somebody I remembered writing about the Dodgers having interest in Justin Wilson at the 2017 trade deadline. He was dominating for the Tigers at the time, and the Cubs ended up paying the price. It was the last update we had was that the Dodgers and Cubs were kind of in a bidding war. And then the next article we published after that related to Justin Wilson was that the Cubs were who ended up trading for him. So yeah, I mean, look, it's a minor league deal. Like there's no risk for the Dodgers. If it works out, great. I think we'll see, this could be an interesting scenario where if he does, I assume he's going to start the season with OKC. And if he is pitching well, I assume he has an opt-out in his contract. And so at that point, will the Dodgers be forced into making a decision? We've seen it in years past. And so does that get him up on the team for a stretch? But yeah, I mean, it's, there's reason to think maybe he could be effective. The Dodgers need, I use the term need loosely, left-handed relief pitchers right now. So, maybe Justin Wilson is an answer, even if it's only for, 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, and I just laugh because he's a lefty. People are going to love that. And it's like, again, he's better against righties than he is lefties. So when everyone thinks, oh, we need lefties to get lefties out. It's like, that's not what he does. He's actually better at getting righties out than he is at getting lefties. And honestly, there's righties that are in the same boat. So could Justin Wilson be a guy that makes an impact for the Dodgers? Would not surprise me in the least. Again, his career numbers are really good. He also hasn't pitched since June of 2022. He had the strained lat on top of a Tommy John surgery. So lots of hurdles for him to clear, but it would be a great story. It's kind of like the Daniel Hudson story. It would have been so easy for this guy to just quit and to give up. Kudos to Justin Wilson for not doing that. And hey, hopefully the Dodgers can find sort of something, tweak something, help him out and bring him back to being an effective guy in the bullpen. The other major story, Matt, here for the Dodgers as a team in Major League Baseball that caught attention is that Rob Manfred is entering the final 5 years of his time as MLB commissioner. I loved reading stories about this, Matt, in which he was surprised that this was such a big deal, which kind of just goes to show how out of touch and clueless he tends to be on these types of things. If you did not know, MLB commissioners kind of signed 5-year contracts. He is just entering the third 5-year term of his time as commissioner, and he announced this week that it will be his last. that'll go through 2028. So don't get your hopes up yet if you're a big anti-Manfred person. But are you somebody that has strong opinions about Rob Manfred, his impact on the game, and kind of eager to see him find the door?
I feel like this is a loaded question. My feelings aren't too strong one way or the other. When the fallout from the 2017 World Series was happening, I definitely felt a certain way and had some thoughts on how that was being handled, and definitely what the punishment ended up being and the agreement, and then definitely after some of the remarks that Manfred made in the wake of all that.
Yeah.
I think if you take a step back, and there's still 5 more, like he's not done by any means.
Long
and so
way to go.
things could still go one way or the other. And there are, I know we'll get into some of the significant issues he sort of faces, but up to this point, like for the most part, I think you probably have to say it's been a success. I know from the owner standpoint, they're definitely happy with how things have gone. The postseason was expanded, TV money keeps going up, like all that stuff is great for them. But I think players probably have, and the union specifically, probably have a little bit of a different view. The Dodgers, I remember, and I'm sure you do as well, like the fallout from the World Series investigation, and it was happening as players are at spring training. And like guys, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, like they weren't holding back. Like Manfred calling the trophy just a piece of metal, like that really upset them. And we heard that from them, and kudos to them for being willing to stand there and say like, hey, we completely disagree with that viewpoint. Like that's everything we play for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like even the pace of play initiatives that went into effect last season, I didn't love them all, but for the most part, they seem to have accomplished what the sport needed. Like as much as I disagree with some of them, like I do want baseball to be a popular sport. Like it's our careers. It's, we love talking about it. So I want people to enjoy it. Right.
Yeah.
And that happened. So there's been good overall. I think it's been okay, but there's still there are a lot of issues coming up, and there's a lot of time for it to kind of swing one way or the other.
I joked earlier about how when things go poorly for a guy like Chris Taylor, they will look worse. I feel like there's a parallel with Rob Manfred. If you just zoomed out and looked at everything, the game of baseball, I think pace of play, for example, those are big changes that would be way easier to just not do any of them. So I think some credit goes to Manfred for kind of seeing that baseball as a nationally talked about sport was on the decline, even if local revenues seem to be okay. And so kudos to him for making that decision. His problem is his lows have been so low. The lockout obviously will be a blemish. The quotes about the Astros, we will obviously be highly biased against how bad the PR campaign and just how clueless. Like I just think of him as a guy who feels like he is out of touch and clueless in many ways. And so that said, I think commissioners in sports in general are just designed to be people that are not liked. Like Roger Goodell is an awful, awful person that everybody despises. You know what? The NFL owners love him because nobody despises them. They despise Roger Goodell. Rob Manfred reportedly makes $25 million a year, Matt, to be the commissioner of baseball. And he's the guy. He's the guy who has to wear it when things go poorly. And so, I just think it's a thankless job. I think the net has been negative on him. And I think the lows have been so low that it will overshadow any good he has done. So, but I guess my bottom line is, Matt, I'm not optimistic the next guy is going to be any better.
That's fair. But also honestly, what Manfred, his tenure could end up coming in legacy, if you will, could end up coming down to two things: the Astros cheating scandal, and the lockout.
Yeah.
And like you said, those are two like pretty significant blemishes that on their own. And then if you dive in a little bit more, then you get into the details. And even during the lockout, like he was saying things that I thought like, and in fairness, the union, like stuff coming from the union also was aggressive language as well. But like, not only was there a lockout, but like the sides were arguing about stuff, and like it was like, hey, do you hear yourselves right now?
Right.
Like, your fans like don't necessarily, I'm sorry. Like again, for the players, it's a completely different circumstance, but fans aren't going to care about, we want arbitration bonus pool to be 6 million, not 5 million or whatever the case is. Right. And like, they were very public with that stuff. And I think that was just a bad look for the sport as a whole. But because like you said, Manfred has to sort of wear that for MLB. Tony Clark does for the union. And so, yes, I think the odds of how did you phrase it? The next person won't necessarily be better.
I'm not optimistic the next guy's going to be better or girl.
That's fair, but also if they avoid kind of those pitfalls, like almost by default, that person could be looked at as having a better tenure. Like if there's not a lockout and there's not a big cheating scandal, you already have a leg up. And we haven't even touched on the RSN, the regional sport networks issues going on with several teams. The Oakland A's expansion and, Manfred's comments now like saying, hey, the Bay Area isn't alone. They still have the Giants there just because Oakland's leaving. Like,
love that.
So there's still kind of a lot of things like landmines, if you will, that could end up really like torpedoing his tenure as commissioner.
Yeah. It's an interesting story again. Hey, this is happening at the end of the 2028 season. So you'll hear about it now. You'll forget about it by the time we get to the 2028 season. Then will be a big storyline that it's his last. So something to keep an eye on there. All right, let's get to some questions here as we close out the show tonight. If you've got any questions, Dodgers specific, food specific, movie specific, whatever you want, whatever's on your mind on a Friday night here at 9:53 p.m. local time if you're joining us live. But if you've got questions, throw those out there. We've got one from Michael right off the bat. Thank you, Michael. What up-and-coming shortstop trade candidates are you guys looking at for the Dodgers to acquire? Lux, even if he manages to right the ship for the next 3 years, is not someone I see us paying. You did point out that it could be 3 years before the Dodgers are looking for somebody. Willy Adames has been a name that the Dodgers have long been linked to. I forget. I'm a pass on Adames. I forget. Do you like Adames, Matt?
I mean, at the right cost, I could be talked into it, but I like if it was going to be Adames and Corbin Burns because maybe they missed out on Yamamoto, then sure, like that's fine because you're getting Corbin Burns at that point. Adames on his own doesn't necessarily move me too much, and I don't know. Like in terms of trade, like it's tough to kind of project some of the trade stuff right now. I mean, it's possible maybe the Dodgers end up just looking internally. I know that they've drafted some infielders recently over the past few years. So maybe the names are escaping me, but maybe that's somebody that they end up turning to instead of the trade market. Yeah,
Trey Sweeney's a guy they acquired from the Yankees who I believe came in immediately as the top sort of shortstop prospect. He was a first-round pick, I believe. Sort of some of the shine wore off a little bit. There's also doubts about whether he'll stick long-term at shortstop. So I think it's a great question. There's no names that jump to mind outside of Adames because it's just so hard to predict who the guys are who are going to be available. I mean, even thinking about a guy like Tim Anderson, a year ago, we talked about should the Dodgers trade for Tim Anderson, and it was like, well, it's going to be super expensive. Now he's basically going to sign with probably the Marlins for almost nothing. So much can change because of that. It quickly as far as who's available, who might the Dodgers be interested. So I think it's a fair question. And you're pointing out that shortstop's not a position of depth. I would add outfield, not a position of depth within the organization. So whether or not they make a trade to be determined. Man, lots of questions here about 2025. Who should we target as a free agent in 2025? That's a long way off, Justin. We got the whole 2024 season. Walker Buehler, maybe that should be a guy. Clayton Kershaw, if he opts out, I think those are two guys I'd target in 2025.
Yeah, we're going to have to let Andrew Friedman know that the fans are asking us about 2025. Hey, Ohtani and Yamamoto were great, but they want to know about next offseason now.
Totally. No, I was going to try and see if there were, let's see, who free agents next year. I mean, Juan Soto, potentially a free agent. That would be the big name. What's funny is Teoscar Hernandez is second on this list as guys who will be free agents because this is just based off of salary. I was trying to think for our last question if there's any shortstops of note. I wonder if this is nothing. Oh, here we go. Outfielders. That's why. Here we go. Shortstops 2025. Adames, top of this list. Ha-Sung Kim, I think is actually a very interesting name. Really good. You're not into it, huh?
I'm not a big Ha-Sung Kim guy. I think he's a little overrated, and I feel like he'll end up getting. I don't want to say overpaid because that like carries a negative connotation, but a bigger contract than I think the Dodgers should give him.
He's interesting. There was rumors that the Padres, would they try and trade him? He's going into his final year. He, of course, won the Gold Glove last year. They just announced he is going to be their shortstop. He's just interesting because of the positional versatility. And yeah, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah.
It's ironic that they keep signing guys to play
Yes.
shortstop and immediately moving them off of shortstop. I joke that's what is AJ Preller? It's the guy who signs Tatis and then who signs Bogarts and then names Ha-Sung Kim as starting shortstop. So if you want a crazy name that answers both of the last two questions we got, there you go, Ha-Sung Kim. You have any AJ Preller thoughts over there, Matt?
No, I mean, it was basically what you said. Like, the Padres are going to end up needing a shortstop if Ha-Sung Kim leaves them in free agency because the two they signed don't play the position anymore.
It's true. It's true. This one's right up your alley, Matt. Hawaiian Kier wants to know, are you Marvel fans? Any comments on the trailers that came out? I am surface level. Movie comes out, I find interesting. I watch it. I forget about it immediately. Marvel is your jam, kind of, right?
Yeah, I'm into Marvel, but I'm into like old Marvel. I miss the Avengers. I think Marvel sort of peaked with Endgame. The stuff since then has been real hit or miss. I haven't really been impressed. I miss, as you can see, I have there we go that way, the Iron Man gauntlet there. So I miss Iron Man. I didn't get a chance to see the trailers, so I can't comment on those specifically, other than just like I said, general perception of Marvel has just been disappointing.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, no thoughts from me. I was actually, what's funny is I was thinking about movies lately because Killers of the Flower Moon was on Max, I believe. And that it's too long. It's a 3.5 hour movie. Like, have you seen it, Matt?
I haven't seen it yet. I want to. I feel like those movies, so like I saw Oppenheimer in the movie theater.
Okay.
And it was really good. And my wife didn't go with me, so she wanted to watch. So we watched it at home, and it was a much tougher watch. And I still enjoyed it. It was a lot more difficult to get through it at home. So if I didn't realize that movie was that long, and so
yeah, 3.5. No, I had heard an interview with the guy who wrote the book, so I kind of knew the rough storyline. The part, like the main storyline, does not begin until 2 hours into the movie. 2 hours into the movie, like a major character shows up that you're like, wait, this guy's like the main character of the story that we're about to watch. Funny enough, on Oppenheimer, everybody in my household is not feeling well, so everyone went to bed. So in order to prepare myself for this, I actually started Oppenheimer. I'm about an hour into Oppenheimer right now, have not seen it, and my hope is, depending on how much energy we've got post the show, is to try and finish it. So might be a late night to me, but I'm into it so far.
Okay. If you are feeling energetic after this, then definitely do it. But if you start to feel a little sleepy, I would say hold off, because there's a ton that you need to, and I'm sure you've already picked up on it, of keep track of and stuff like that. So it could get a little challenging. Fair
enough. Back to baseball here. A couple. TQT, the janitor. Oh, I love that. Don't you love just hearing that, Matt? It just rolls off the tongue. The janitor, aka Will Smith, had a solid, albeit kind of down year in 2023. What do you expect from him? And do you think he's extended at all with rushing Lorenzo and maybe Cartaya ready? So for those not into Dodgers prospects, the question is referencing the fact that the Dodgers have 3 catching prospects that are top 75 guys on a bunch of lists. Diego Cartaya a year ago was one of the top prospects in baseball. He kind of has started to slip back. He had a pretty bad year last year. Dalton Rushing continues to climb. A lot of people have Rushing as the number 1 prospect in the Dodgers system. And then there's Lorenzo, who some people have higher than both of them, who's an international free agent that they've signed. So a glut of catching depth there. So 2 questions here with that in mind, Matt. What are you expecting from Will Smith? And we can get to the extension question here momentarily.
Well, I guess what I'm expecting is a little more consistency than we saw from him last year. And what was strange is he hit well, even though he was playing through an undisclosed fracture in his ribs. And then it wasn't until kind of later in the year that he sort of went into a slump. Maybe it was lingering effects from the concussion, even though he was sort of cleared. Not sort of cleared, he was cleared. So I think more consistency is to be expected and would be valuable and appreciated, certainly by the Dodgers and Will Smith as well. In terms of being extended, I don't necessarily see that happening unless Will Smith is open to kind of a team. Like, the Dodgers aren't going to overpay for him per se. Yeah. And so if Smith is open to some team-friendly terms, then I think maybe something could get done there, but I wouldn't count on it.
So Will Smith has 1 year left on his contract after 2024. So he will be a Dodger for 2 more seasons. He's about to turn 29. So keep in mind that he will be a free agent basically at age 31. It is worth acknowledging he was a 4.4 wins above replacement guy a year ago, and that was in 126 games. So he was like a top 30 player in Major League Baseball, according to wins above replacement, despite being a catcher that only played in 3/4 of the games last season. So I think part of Will Smith's problem is the level of expectation has raised to a level that it feels because I'm with you. Like, I'm not poo-pooing this question. It felt underwhelming from Will Smith, but I think the beauty is, even as an underwhelming guy, he was really, really valuable. I love Will Smith. He's the guy that I like. He's like, I would say, my favorite player on the Dodgers outside of Clayton Kershaw. And yet I find it really hard to believe that they're going to extend him. I would love if they could, but I just think they're going to look at him at 31 and they're just going to say, like, we have Ohtani, who's going to be our DH forever. And can Will Smith play a different position? Well, Freddie Freeman's locked up for a few years beyond when Will Smith will be a free agent. There were rumors of him playing third base. That's not exactly a position you age into necessarily. So as much as it pains me to say, I think he could probably become a free agent and get like a 6-year deal, whereas the Dodgers would probably be offering him 3 or 4. That said, I always push back against, well, look at all the catching prospects. The best case scenario for rushing Lorenzo or Cartaya is Will Smith. Like, best case scenario, one of these guys develops into a player that is 80% good as Will Smith. So I think Will Smith will be fine. I think he'll be probably a little bit better just because of the firepower in the lineup. As you said, probably a little bit healthier. But I think we're probably watching the two of his last years as a Dodger. Just is my read on the situation.
Jeff, are you okay? Was that, I know that
it's tough. Hey, it comes and goes. It comes and goes. I get our guy Blake will never get over the fact that Corey Seager isn't here. And it just happens. It's baseball. I said it at the time. I love Corey Seager. I wouldn't have paid him the money that he got paid. He won a World Series. Kudos to him. Like, this stuff happens. I'm also the guy that says give Clayton Kershaw the lifetime contract. So, but that's a Clayton Kershaw only kind of a deal. We got a food question here from Dong. Yes or no, McDonald's fillet of fish?
No, not at all. No.
You couldn't pay me to eat it.
Yeah.
You couldn't pay me to eat it. I'm not eating fish from McDonald's. Sorry about that. Do you think there's no way anybody on our staff would eat one of those, right? Daniel would be the only one that might like, but he feels like he would probably be most likely to eat it, but not actually enjoy it or want to eat it.
Right. It would be like, hey, Daniel, like, we dare you, or we need you to do this. And he would be like the one that's the most open to it. And willing to take one for the team.
Trent is fit, wants to know, what are your expectations for Max Muncy and Gavin Lux? I'm hoping Muncy takes major leaps and Lux stays healthy. We talked about Lux. Let's talk a little bit about Max Muncy. He's got to be your like kryptonite on the Dodgers. The guy who hits like a $190, big batting average guy. Matt Moreno has to, the Max Muncy of the world have to bother you the most, right?
I mean, it's not, honestly, it's not even as often, like, whatever. It is what it is. The batting average, the walks, and it's like the defense, like, a lot of routine plays were not so routine. And so my, expectations are probably a little, maybe his batting average is a little bit higher than it was last season, but he hit a bunch of home runs. He drew a lot of walks. So like that should probably stay the same. Those have been trends throughout his career. I don't know how much we could, I guess his defense was relatively subpar. So we can expect it to be better because it got to pretty low.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, he's a year older, like, father time sets in for everybody.
Yeah. Father time's undefeated, as they say. Yeah, I mean, I like Muncy. I think he's fine. I think the defense is obviously concerning. I felt at times it was overblown last year. That's a zag. That's a zag for you. So I don't know. I'm fine with Muncy. Again, I think it's kind of like the Lux thing. Is if you're batting like Will Smith will bat fourth. We have a question coming up here about Teoscar Hernandez. Muncy and him are going to be in that 5-6. Like, I just think once you get past Will Smith, like, don't screw it up is basically going to be the MO. Like, as long as you're fine, nobody's going to talk about you because all the attention is going to be on the 3 guys who are going to be MVP candidates at the top of the lineup. Nando asks this question. Thoughts on Teoscar Hernandez possibly batting fourth instead of Will Smith? I would suggest against lefties would be his chance. He is far better against lefties than he is righties, although he is competent against righties. Do you think there's any chance that against lefties they move Teoscar Hernandez up in the lineup?
Yeah, I think so. I think especially if he is, hitting well, and if Will Smith is susceptible to some of the inconsistency we saw
Yeah.
last season, then that's certainly a move the Dodgers will consider.
Okay. Rod, will the Dodgers sell out every home game this season? I would guess Otani fills 10,000 seats by himself. My initial reaction is this is a crazy question. And yet, I don't know. I mean, would you be shocked if they sold out 150 games this year, Matt?
That would not shock me. If we're focusing on home games only, I don't think it'll be every game just because they do have I think 3 or 4 of the 12-10 or 110 starts on like a
Sure.
Wednesday. So those are always tough. But what the Dodgers typically do is bus in like schools and camps, kids that are in camps like that, especially if it's the summer months. But no, I mean, selling out every home game is challenging, even though there is a ton of interest in the team because of Otani.
Young wants to know how many Dodgers hit 30 or more home runs. I was looking up last year. Mookie got 39, Muncy 36, JD had 33, Freddie was at 29, Outman 23, Will Smith 19. Obviously, you add in Otani, you add in Teoscar Hernandez. So to just go over that list again, returners who hit over 30 would just be Mookie Betts and Max Muncy. Teoscar, Otani would make 4. Freddie was at 29. So that would theoretically, just if everybody stays the same, that would get you to 5. Would you go higher than that, Matt? Or are you staying the same at 5? You going under?
I'm going just under. I think it's going to be 4 again.
Teoscar had 26, by the way, so I apologize. So they actually only had 4 current Dodgers that hit 30 or more last year. So you're saying 4.
Yeah, I think it'll be 4.
I'm going, you ready for this? I'm going 6. Give me Freddie Freeman gets to 30. Mm-hmm. Give me Teoscar gets to 30. And heck, Will Smith could threaten it. You could get to 25 and see what happens. So Muncy, I feel good about. Betts, I feel good about. Otani, I feel good about. So health obviously is the question on a lot of those. Let's see. A couple more questions if we've got them. Scrolling. GI, any predictions on what will be the most pressing need at the trade deadline?
I don't know, because I feel like if we're making this type of prediction, it's because something has gone bad. Like the Dodgers roster, I mean, we've discussed it in several of our videos. Like they don't have roster spaces for some of the things that are still being speculated about.
I mean, I think that the two that come to mind are what's the health of the bullpen, because I don't think there's an overwhelming amount of depth in the bullpen. I think they've got like 10 guys that could all be on the major league roster. And then it's, Justin Wilson's of the world. So I could see a world where they need to make a move. And it might be the most pressing need, although it may not be a pressing need, or outfield. Like if you're telling me that Jason Hayward is slumping, Chris Taylor's not awesome, Manuel Margot is not awesome. Those are the two areas that I think jump to mind for me. So I could see them needing a corner outfielder. I'll say that.
That's a good call. If it's not that, I'll do starting pitching just because maybe some of the question marks that are surrounding the rotation sort of cropped up.
Yeah, player wants to know how many chicken wings could each of you eat within an hour. This person probably doesn't know that Matt is not a fan of wings in general. But barbecue wing. Like, do you like barbecue wings?
I mean, they're fine. Like they're okay. But I'm assuming that this question's being asked because the Dodgers had their annual spring training competition. So as much as I don't care for buffalo wings, if you put me like in a competitive environment, like I like them enough that I'll try to power through.
Okay.
That being said, I don't even know because buffalo wings are hard to they look small, right? But I feel like if you're eating them that quickly,
and if you're dipping them in ranch and stuff like that,
so I'll be modest and I'll say 15.
Okay, I think I could probably get to empty stomach. I could probably get to 25 would be my guess. I loved, was it Outman in the video that was I think I'd lose steam at 20. And then they're like, well, how many do you think he eats? 40. They're like, you just said you'd lose steam at 20. It's I'd love it. I'm like, this guy's not even thinking.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Quick question. Well, I'll save it. We got a super chat. I have an eating competition question for you. Trust Genius. Austin Barnes will not be hitting 30 plus home runs. Confirmed. Trust. Is he even at 30 for his career? What do you think Austin Barnes' career total is, Matt, for home runs?
29.
Let's see. 34.
Ooh.
Gosh, you undervalued the guy. How dare you, Matt? How dare you? 545 games, the equivalent of 3.5 full seasons. He has 34 home runs. You want to guess what his career high is?
Is it like 14?
Ooh, 8.
Oh, okay.
Now you overshot.
Yeah.
8. So let's see. His first 2 years, he played 41 games. Well, I guess only 75 plate appearances, no home runs. 2017 was his best year. 8 home runs, 3.6 wins above replacement, on-base percentage above 400. I was actually, for the record, writing articles about how Austin Barnes was like ready for a breakout, was going to be a big deal. And I got burned. Not why I'm bitter, I promise, but I was pro Austin Barnes. That article does exist somewhere. 8, 4, 5, 1, 6, 8, 2 home runs last year. 2 home runs for our guy Barnesy. So trust genius confirmed. All right. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? Oh, we got a couple other questions.
I saw a couple good. I mean, are we sticking to baseball or are we doing food stuff?
We could do a couple more baseball.
Well, I saw food. I should have phrased
or
it
food.
differently.
I mean, look, my question for you, Matt, while you're looking is, if you were going to be in an eating competition, what food would you want it to be?
That's tough because I love like cheeseburgers and pastas and stuff, but who really wants to be in an eating competition with that
what
stuff,
do you think? Like when you look around, you're like, I feel like I could eat more of this thing than the people around me could eat of this thing.
Oh man,
I feel like mine is pizza. I feel like I smash pizza.
Yeah, pizza. I feel like
keep looking at it and keep going back for more.
Yeah, and then you realize, oh man, I've had 4 slices. I need to ease up.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably it. If not pizza, maybe like nacho, like the movie theater, like nachos or popcorn, maybe.
Yang Yi says Dodger dogs.
Definitely not me.
Yeah. Player says pizza for sure. Hawaiian Kira, including the crust. I'm not like, I don't love crust. Domino's, shout out to Domino's. The garlic butter on the crust is a game changer, in my opinion. So kind of depends on how hungry I am and how much pizza there is. If I feel like I need to pace myself, I'll eat, because I got to spread the wealth on who's getting pizza here. But yeah, Tommy's Burger competition, 6 3/4.
Yeah,
Tommy's Burgers. That's insane.
That's impressive.
Okay, Justin says, or takoyaki, Japanese fried balls of octopus. So that, sounds. I mean, I'd eat it. I don't know. Pizza dumplings. Dumplings. So there you go.
I couldn't find the question. I remember it though. The question. I apologize for whoever asked us. It was Coke or Pepsi. They wanted to know.
I'm actually not a soda person. This is like one of those, I just have no opinion. I don't even know if I could tell you the difference. Like I can tell they taste different, but if you handed me one, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you if it was Coke or Pepsi.
I feel like that's a hot take. Most people typically have strong, and I'm not like most people. I just feel like have strong opinions.
Totally. No. As I'm saying that, I realize I am very much in the minority on this one.
I try not to do soda typically, but the weekends is when maybe I'm more inclined to let myself splurge a little bit more. But definitely am a Coke guy in terms of like kind of their overall line of products. But a cherry Pepsi, when you're craving that, is very, very good.
Wild cherry Pepsi is the best soda. Like when I was in high school and just crushing soda like it was nobody, I could crush 2 to 3 of those a night.
Yeah.
So that's a great call. I'll say Pepsi simply because they created wild cherry Pepsi.
Actually, and now this comes to mind. To answer your question, what I think I could out eat somebody, and I'll do sunflower seeds.
That'd be such a brutal like eating competition.
What made me think of it is sometime during baseball season, I get a bag of sunflower seeds, I get a bottle of cherry Pepsi, and I'm good to go for that Dodger game that night.
Okay, because I was going to ask, like, you're not a chew the whole seed, swallow it all kind of guy.
No, I'll spit.
So you need the bottle. Yeah.
Or I'll just get like a plastic, like we have plastic cups left over from like if we've had little parties here, and I just save the cups because I know that there's going to be a random May where I have a bag of sunflower seeds and I'm going to need to spit them in.
Yeah, no, I'll never forget a road trip in which I had a cup and I was spitting sunflower seeds into it all day with my wife, and the cup spilled.
Oh man,
and that was not awesome. Finding sunflower seeds for weeks and weeks and weeks because those things just got into every crack and crevice of like the mats and everything. So there you go. I see somebody in the chat. EB says Mexican Coke is number one. I actually don't know if, I mean, this is another, I don't know if I've ever had it. I'm not a soda guy. So the idea of paying like $5 for a glass bottle, but people that like it swear by it. So
it's good. It's not for me at least. It's not like if I'm gonna have like kind of a regular Coke, it's not the one I'll default to. But if I'm eating like tacos or definitely Mexican food, like if I'm at a Mexican restaurant and I know they have it, then that's the perfect time to get it.
There you go. There you go. Well, folks, that will do it for us on that note. So thank you everybody for joining us on a Friday night. One programming note, we are doing these live shows throughout the week. Next week will be Tuesday night and Thursday night because the Dodgers will be kicking off their games next week. So be on the lookout for that, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And these times will be a little bit more flexible in the spring. We're going to try and keep the days consistent. But once games start, the Tuesday, Friday nights will be post-game shows. So until then, kind of varying as the schedule goes. But that is Matthew Moreno. My name is Jeff Spiegel. We appreciate you joining us. Make sure you check out DodgerBlue.com. If you're new here, subscribe, ring the notification bell, check out all our content. As Matt said, there's more Ohtani content up. Those videos have done really well because everybody wants to see that guy hit baseballs, and it's a fantastic thing to watch. Dodger Blue 1958 on social media. And, of course, you can find Matt at Matthew__ Moreno or me at Jeff Spiegel as well. Enjoy the rest of your night, folks. As always, go Dodgers.